12 people have been killed after a truck plowed into a Christmas market in central Berlin. Up to 50 people have been injured. Germany security sources say that the incident is being investigated as an act of terrorism. Police report that a person suspected to be the driver has been arrested and that a body was found inside the vehicle.
A truck plowed into revelers at a Christmas market here in the German capital, just behind me, right in the center of Berlin. People had come out and had been enjoying a Christmas evening, a seasonal evening, before this truck plowed into them. We're hearing reports of what happened at the scene from those that were first to arrive here, of a gruesome scene of people that had been crushed by this truck as it went through there. Now, police here have one person in custody. We also understand that they recovered a body from the van itself. Now, we're hearing speculation that this may have been related to a kidnapping of this truck. Sorry, I beg your pardon, a hijacking of this truck. Now, the vehicle itself was registered in Poland. The owner of the vehicle, owner of the haulage company, has said that yes, the vehicle was supposed to be here, but described the driver as missing and as highly experienced, saying he wouldn't have lost control of this vehicle in such a way. Now, this incident has already been referred to as an act of terror by the United States, saying that it seemed that it looked like an act of terror. The White House issuing their condolences as we try to piece together exactly what happened. Now, these type of incidences we have seen in the past where they've been directly linked to the Islamic State organization. We have seen this happen in France at the same type of Christmas market, whereby a vehicle has been driven into the crowds at that market in order to try and injure and kill people there. And of course, it is all too reminiscent of the terrible terrorist attack that took place earlier in this year, in which 80 people were killed in Nice, in France, after a refrigerator truck was driven into a crowd of people at a Bastille Day fireworks display. So we are trying to find out exactly what happened here in Berlin.
That was RT's Peter Oliver. Now, police have evacuated the Christmas market and sealed it off. Officers armed with assault rifles are now patrolling the area. And two witnesses of this deadly collision at the Christmas market in Berlin believe it was a deliberate attack, as the truck driver didn't appear to make any attempt to stop.
It happened so fast there was nothing we could do to stop it, and if we tried to stop it we would have been crushed. Definitely looked deliberate. My girlfriend said it appeared that the truck was not stopping. There was no attempt to stop. It was careering in, definitely bashing into the stalls where people would be facing the stalls, and then carried on through. There was no particular police around at the time because everybody was happy. It just carried on through. I think it was stopped by just bits of scenery and truck inside it. So, not truck inside it, sorry, bits of scenery and bits of stalls inside the truck. So it appeared to be stopped just outside the market, having looped through the edge. There was no attempt. When you see a truck, when it's braking, the cab dips down, doesn't it? But when it's not braking, it carries on up. And it didn't look like it was stopping. There was no brake sounds. It was clearly going straight on through. So whether it was a driver who was just drunk and going through, or whether it was lost control of the vehicle, or whether it was a deliberate attempt, I can't tell you, but there was no attempt to stop that we could see. It was definitely carrying on.
Terror has no borders. It's like you cannot be safe anywhere. I mean, I come from a destroyed place, and I'm here to witness this, and like to feel like death is following you everywhere. It's not easy. Actually, we didn't know what happened first. We tried to ask people, and nobody knew actually because they were in shock. There are people like running this way. We try to go the opposite way to see what happened, and after that we knew that somebody with a truck ran through people in the Christmas market. We didn't actually see it as it was running through people, but we saw it parking. It was like a Scania truck. Yeah, it was a big one, and the glass was broken, and the windshield was smashed.
And we can now go back to Jack Rice, a former CIA officer, to discuss the recent incident in Germany now. Welcome back to the program, sir. And what's your opinion? Do you think this incident bears the hallmarks of a terror attack?
It does. If we look at what happened in Nice previously, and this is exactly what I thought of as you were referencing to earlier, that's what I thought of immediately. And if you take a look back at some of the language being used by ISIL and what they were recommending and suggesting to their followers, this is exactly an example of it. Use a knife, use a car, use whatever you can. And so this is consistent with that. And frankly, they've been trying to hit Berlin now for some time. So the idea of actually coming through and doing something. Now, the benefit I think they have in this particular case is because they have a survivor. There at least been some reports that this truck actually came out of Poland and that it actually may have been stolen someplace out of Poland. That's not that far away. But at least you can find and track this backward. This must have been part of a plan to actually go and commit something like this. This wasn't just some random act. And that's beneficial because there were more than one or two people involved. There had to be. And as a result of that, I think you have a lot more, at least potential to figure out exactly where this started, who drove it, and why.
So 2016 has certainly been a very tough year for Germany. I'm sure you remember over the summer there was a spate of different terrorist attacks in Germany, and that prompted the government there to promise to step up security measures to prevent such attacks from happening again. Do you think what happened in Berlin is an indicator that those security measures have failed?
Well, I don't know if we can go that far. The real problem with it is that it's a big country, and there are a lot of people there. And those people can be motivated by a whole series of different things. And it's not an authoritarian regime. You don't have the ability to simply lock down an entire country. There are people who simply have the ability to act and react. We've seen the same thing in the United States. The Brits saw this. The French have seen this, the Belgians have seen this, and others too. Again, what we are seeing right now in Turkey. And the problem that I think a lot of people face, and the Russians as well, frankly, for that matter, the problem that people face is that you can ramp this up. There's always a balancing act. That balancing act is that you can increase security, you can even increase the powers of the police to try to stop this. But in some ways, the more you ramp up some of this, the more you actually may encourage it. And that's really the question. It's about trying to figure out how to stop the motivational structure behind this, because you can kill people. You can stop this, but the problem is are you creating more enemies than you're actually destroying? You always have to ask yourself that question, and it's always that tricky balance. And that's where I think the West is, that's where the East is right now, and that's where everybody seems to be. And they're trying to figure out what that answer is and what that balance is.
Now, if this is a war that we're seeing right now taking place between the world and terrorism, let's look at it like that, then it's a whole new level of it's a whole new tactic. Like you said, they're calling on their followers to use cars, to use knives, and it's a new format. You see what I'm saying? Like before, I guess security services are used to trying to protect people from bombs and from guns that you could detect. But how do you prevent such incidents like this when they use trucks, regardless whether it was an attack or an accident? What can be done, do you think?
It's a really great point that you make. I mean, it's different when what you're looking for is somebody with an AK-47. It's different when you're looking for somebody who actually has plastique, when they have explosives, when they have something they can look for. At least then you're actually looking for very particular chemical signs. What happens when you use something that everybody has? What happens when all of a sudden what you're talking about is a car? It changes everything. If we can take a look back after 9/11, and the Americans went through a lot of growing pains, and they made a lot of massive mistakes. But one of the things that they tried to start doing was they changed how they dealt with security when it came to the ability of somebody to simply drive up in a car, simply drive up in a truck. And so what you have are pillars and ways to push people back from significant places. The problem is that every time they did this, what would happen is you would push these people back, so to speak, but people would still be out there. And it's a moving target. You always have to ask yourself this question: how far do you push people back? Think of this like an airport. Is it just when you get on the airplane? or is it just at the security gate? Okay, well, let's go back and look at what happened in Turkey. You realize, can it be just where you're parking those cars? How about 10 feet back? How about 10 miles back? You keep moving the target, and people who are trying to kill people, to maim, and to get attention for it will continue to try to find a way in. That's part of the difficulty. That's part of the challenge of the intelligence communities around the world right now.
Jack Rice, a former CIA officer, thank you for finding the time, sharing your opinions with us on two of our main stories tonight. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Of course.